There are very few things that the Bible asks us and tells us to hate, but when it does ask us and tell us to hate something, we should definitely pay attention. Welcome back to another Friday Bible study, my favorite part of the week. I hope you guys are having a great week or ending up on a good week, getting ready to head into a weekend of rest and relaxation. And on Fridays, I love to upload just a brief Bible study. I believe even if you're not a believer like me and you don't actually follow the faith that I follow, the Bible still has wisdom and insight and knowledge that anyone can come to and respect and glean from. And so I'm hoping that that even if you're not in that place, that you'll still take the time to listen, because I do think that it's beneficial for everyone. But today I wanted to share something from Proverbs chapter 8, and I think it's going to be really, really impactful. But the entire chapter of Proverbs 8 talks about how wisdom is calling out and seeking people that will come and listen to her. It personifies wisdom into this woman who searches for men in particular in this chapter that will come and find her and be in intimate relationship with her, and talks about how her instruction is better than silver and knowledge is better than gold. In verse 10, it talks about how it's better than jewels, and that anything that you can think of, anything that you could ever desire, is incomparable with what she brings to the table. And so it basically tells young men in a parable type form, in a hyperbole, how just like you would seek out an amazing woman and desire intimacy with an amazing woman, in the same way you should seek out and desire intimacy with wisdom. And from there, anything that you could ever desire will only be secondary to that relationship. So very insightful thing. But actually today I wanted to focus in and hyper focus on one statement that is made by the personified character of wisdom that I think will reveal something very deep within that. In verse 12 it says, "I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion." These are the things that wisdom in this personified character deems important, and what wisdom herself actually seeks for. In verse 13 is actually where I want to focus in on. It says, "The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate." Verse 14 says, "I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight, I have strength." Verse 15, "By me kings reign and rulers decree what is just." And then verse 16, "By me princes rule and nobles all who govern justly." But that verse 13 is where I'm hyper focusing in on. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Hatred is an extreme, intense word. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. You see, the thing is the earlier in the book of Proverbs and earlier Proverbs, and most likely was mentioned so many times, is that the beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord. The beginning of knowledge is fear of the Lord. So it says it multiple times, and at this point, you would have read it multiple times reading up to Proverbs 8. But the book of Proverbs in and of itself is a collection of wisdom, poems, and sayings, and things like that put into one place. And so it was a common saying, the beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord, a reverential, respectful, worshipful fear when you come in and engage and understand that your position in the universe and God's position in the universe and who He is and how He operates, and you respect that. And it's not something where you have arrogance and pride towards it, but it's a humility and a fearful worship of who God is and God Himself. And even if you're in a place where you don't necessarily follow that and you're like, well, that's not something that speaks to me, it can speak to you because it's an understanding of your position in the universe, and it's a acknowledgement and taking on of how human you actually are, your own humanity, in the sense that you have and can fall, you have and can mess up, you have and can struggle with very human things and human emotions, pride, arrogance, hatred, fear. All these things are things that you can experience, and people lose touch of how human they actually are a lot of times when they start becoming very good at something, when they start becoming successful, when they have a lot to lose on the line, when they're trying to protect their position and they're trying to be political and they're trying to make sure that they don't lose something that's important to them. These are all things that can happen and take place within this concept of when you see people, that are unwilling to admit they're wrong, unwilling to deal with their own drama. This is all tied into this fear of the Lord aspect, understanding that you, in and of yourself, are coming to a place where there's something more powerful to you, and you are submitting to that. There's power in that, believe it or not. And most people struggle with this. But the fear of the Lord is very specific in the sense of it's acknowledging that God is the creator of the universe. God is Alpha and Omega, and I submit to that and understand that. But it says here, what it does is it takes that worshipful attitude, the fear of the Lord, and puts a action towards it. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Not just avoidance, not just non-desiring of it, but a hatred, a hate it. Almost in a way, it's giving you permission to actually hate something, to hate evil. Anything wicked, anything backwards, anything perverted, anything that is harmful to oneself or to others, anything that you see injustice, all these things, racism, all this stuff, it's an absolute hatred of it. Not people. It's not telling you to do evil. It's not telling you to, render evil to evil people. It's not saying, hey, go out there, not telling you to dress up as Batman, go out there, start punching people to death. That's not what it's saying. It's saying a hatred of it and a desire to get and a hatred to be a part of it. Because you understand your place in the universe, you understand that there is a worshipful reverence to the Lord, the hatred of evil. And then once again, wisdom is then further personified in the second half of the verse, and specifically names things that wisdom herself does hate: pride, arrogance, the way of evil, the actions that are evil actions. That's what it's saying. Perverted speech, meaning perverted speech is speech that has been twisted and manipulative, and there's a perversion to it. Like you're saying one thing and there's an agenda behind it, and it's a bad agenda. These are things that wisdom hates. And so what you would have to imagine in this personification of wisdom is that if you are engaging in these practices, and this is part of who you are, you're prideful, you're arrogant, you are conducting yourself in the way of evil, you're doing evil things, and you have perverted speech, that you are, there's a perversion to how you talk and how you engage with people, and you're speaking evil things, and your words are being used for evil things. People who lie, people who, deceive, people who manipulate, people who have an agenda behind their words. These are things that will cause wisdom to run and flee from you, and there's no wisdom in it. A lot of times we will look at someone in history that was doing evil and wicked things. You'll find these people and they will be labeled as being, very smart. We'll all acknowledge they're evil and they do bad things, and they're these historical figures, but a lot of times there's a discussion around how intelligent they were, and unfortunately they use their intelligence for evil. But the Bible is interesting in this wisdom text because it flips that narrative on its head and basically says that there is a complete absence of wisdom within pride, arrogance, evil actions, and wicked speech, evil speech, perverted speech. Basically saying that there is no wisdom in that, and that you are walking down a path of complete self-destruction. And so if you engage in these things, you allow your pride and your arrogance to reign in your heart and in your life, and you're very prideful and arrogant in the way that you won't engage in a healthy, constructive way of life, in the sense of, you're impossible to talk to, you're impossible to work with, you're all there. I mean, everyone can think of people in their life that they've worked with that were prideful and arrogant, and they can think of times in their life where they themselves are prideful and arrogant. And that pathway in and of itself is self-destructive, in the sense of people will not work with you, people will not want to be around you, people will not want to engage with you. And you may have people in your life that have to work with you, but they're not going to want to be around you. Push everyone away from you. No one enjoys that kind of a person. No one enjoys being around that kind of a person. And basically it's continues to flip that narrative, because it's talks about evil actions and perversion of your speech and all these things. Like you're going about these things that are leading you down a path where eventually the bill comes due. And there's an absence of wisdom there, in the sense of there's no wisdom or great knowledge in it. You are walking down a way that is completely self-destructive, and it's going to end in complete and total self-destruction. And it warns of that. There is a hatred to it of wisdom, an absence of wisdom. If you're going to be wise, real, healthy and powerful wisdom comes with humility. So the way you can look at this is you can read this verse, and you can flip the keys to it. You could do the opposite end of the spectrum, right? So verse 13, it says, the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. You can actually say, well, if it's that, then what it also is saying is the fear of the Lord is the absolute love and adoration of good. And you can say pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. And this is the personification of wisdom. You can flip it and say humility and the way of good and truthful speech I love. That was actually kind of harder than I thought it was going to be. I had to really think about that, but it's still the principle remains the same. These are things that attract wisdom, humility, and a lack of arrogance, and engaging in good actions, always pursuing good actions, always being a part of good actions, and being truthful and peaceful with your speech, and just being honest with people. These are things that wisdom loves and attracts wisdom, and will continue wisdom, and you will continue to engage in wisdom and grow in wisdom. Those are things that wisdom will be on you and be a part of you, and you'll be able to conduct yourself in a way where you are leaning into the knowledge and experience of others, and gleaming from that and learning from that, and engaging with people in a way that's healthy and everyone wants to be around you. And it's a beautiful thing. It truthfully is a beautiful thing. And that is the personification of wisdom and what she desires. And I think it's something to really think about. It's amazing how the word will take these simple truths that it's like, well, this is, everybody knows this. It's like, yeah, but when you really break it down and think about it and talk about it, and you start to engage in it, and you start to really kind of chew on it, you can really apply it to your life and see the beauty in that. A lot of people, you'll meet people in your life that will play political games at work, with other people. They try these they play these politics, and they try to backstab others, and unfortunately it's a very common thing in corporate. I've had multiple stories of times where I was really, really surprised and shocked at how people behaved, and they go into this survival mechanism. And I will tell you that, I don't want to hurt anyone. I know there's a lot of people that are victims of very terrible things. And if a terrible thing has happened to you, I'm not trying to sit here and say, suck it up. I myself have been a victim of some terrible things. And you have to take time to work through those things and seek the help that you need. But I will tell you that unfettered victimhood is a doorway to becoming this kind of a person, where you're engaging in evil actions and you're prideful and you're arrogant and you're perverted in your speech. Because when you have unfettered victimhood, that is what you use to vindicate and justify your actions. Well, I'm doing this because they don't understand. Well, I'm doing this because so-and-so, da-da-da-da. Those are the kinds of things that cause this person, that cause a person to engage in evil things and justify it and vindicate it to themselves. Unfettered victimhood. So we must avoid that feeling, that way of thinking, and say, I'm not going to be a victim in this situation and justify this. That evil is still evil, even if I feel like I'm justified in doing it. It's a black and white situation. And so I hope that helps you. I hope that gives you something to chew on. That's the victimhood thing is something that I've put a lot of thought into. And just to give you a little background, I was engaged with a situation where I felt like I was very lucky and blessed because I got a chance to get close to a very, very well-respected leader. The leader was not very open and open to having people in their life, and they didn't have very many people close to them, and they were well respected outside of the organization, but inside the organization, a lot of people didn't enjoy working with them, and they had a very high turnover rate. And so as I got close to the leader and became close with them and working with them, I began to notice some patterns and habits that they would engage in. And essentially they were unhealthy, and they would be considered a lot of times like, hey, that's the wrong thing to do. You don't treat people like that. And then I started to see them engaging in that, and they started behaving that way towards me. And I would sit down and have a lot of conversations with them. I was around them for a very long time, and all of their conversations would talk about how unfair their situation is, about how, they were put in a situation where they had to make some terrible decisions and no one's really helping them. And, essentially it was always about how, if I'm being frank, if I'm just being honest, and this is going to sound mean, but it was always about how they were the victim. And then they would use that conversation or use that to vindicate and justify, because then in the same conversation, they say, that's why I had to do X, Y, Z to, this person over here. And that's what really caused me to start thinking, how does someone who is looked at as such a respected leader, who on the outside, speaks about and the right things to do, but their actions, are just completely opposite, and you're just shocked. You're like, I don't understand. How is this so? How are you doing this? How does someone become like this? You know what's right. You speak what's right to other people. You present yourself in a light where you're talking about the right things that you do. But then when you go in and engage with stuff, you see how self-destructive they are. And I had to put a lot of time and thinking into that. And I believe that I came to a place of understanding in that situation. Unfettered victimhood. Victimhood is the pathway, it's the doorway to becoming that kind of a person. And you cannot allow yourself to justify your own actions by making yourself the hero of your own story. And saying, well, I can do this because of what happened to me over here. So I hope that helps. That gives you something to chew on, something that I've thought about a lot. I'm actually curious to see what you guys think in the comments section below. You tell me if you think you agree with that or not. I am curious to see that because, I'm not saying I could be wrong on it. I don't know. It's just something that I put a lot of thought into, being around people like that myself and trying to figure that out. So I hope that this gives you guys something to think about, something to chew on during your weekend. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me to this long. It's funny how this video can go long. I'm only talking about one verse in the whole thing, and the thing could, this could go this long, but that's what I love about the Word. That's what I love about the Bible. So I hope that you find that to be beneficial, even if you wouldn't yourself say that you believe the faith that I do. I still think it's beneficial for everyone. So, all right, guys, hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.